So I covered a while back how to do this thing, where you have a racing car, and if I look from the top, then if you go around the right way, then it adds. But then if you go, only this one is working now, this checkpoint. So if you go all the way back round, then you can continue. But if you just try and kind of rack up laps or something, it won't work. And that was done using this stuff, which isn't a lot of stuff, but I had a brainwave of how you can do the same thing way easier. So let's have a look at that. Yeah, so I made another demo, and this consists of that, and that's the entire thing with all the checkpoints. That's like the start and finish line, so you can see it moving on through the things, and now when you go through, then it adds, but if you go back and forth and stuff, it doesn't work. So you could go all the way back round, and then it would continue to the next checkpoint, which isn't actually useful for the player. So trying to cheat like that won't help. So I've got a track here. This is our track, and this is our car. This would just be a tag on your car sculpt or something. And we want it so that you have to go round in the right order and then pass it, and then it will give you a lap. But if you just like go back and forth through it, then it won't keep on racking up the laps. So we want to add checkpoints around the corners or the sides, so that you have to go through them each in order to be able to be allowed to pass the lap point kind of thing and register a lap. So first let's make some trigger zones. So the trigger zone will look for the tag that we've got here, which is called car. I'll use up and down on here to on the D-pad to set that to car, and now I'll adjust the shape. And now when this tag is inside that zone, then it's sending a signal out of detected, which is the same thing as this, and it also has like a bar of how detected it is. So when it's outside, then it's just plain, and then as it detects stuff, then it has this bar that goes up, which makes the face have like a black bar. Right, so that's the one for down here. Just put it down there. Now let's add one over here on this side. Cool, so we've got these zones, and if I go show and hide zones, then it will show us all the zones of gadgets we can see. So if this chip is closed, then it won't show it. If the gadget's open, then it will show us the zones in there. So when I go through these different trigger zones, they're detecting that the tag is in there. Cool, so now we want a way of like progressing through them, and you could do this a couple of different ways. I'm going to do it so that you can have as many checkpoints as you want using a timeline. So first we want to put it onto beats time. So it by default it's on clock time. When you get it from this menu here, and you can click on it with X to put it onto beats time, so you get these columns that are easier to work with, unless you're in sound mode, in which case you get it just sets it to beats mode by default, and that's the only change. So put it onto beats mode, and then so that each column is a different number across the top, that will help us do stuff. Put the meter denominator to 1, and now you get 1 number per column. So we have 4 trigger zones, 4 checkpoints, so we'll put it onto 4, and I'll use L1 and right on the D-pad while hovering over the timeline, and left collapses it, so it kind of expands and collapses it time-wise, and you can get a bit more room to play with. So the first trigger zone is actually this one. You want the trigger zone that will trigger a lap to be the last one in this timeline. So if we actually just put that in first, at the moment the end kind of hangs off the end. So if we grab that end and just make sure it goes there, now we can, to show you the difference, it kind of clips off in a straight line. And if we just touch the end, and then it has that rounded thing, so that shows you where the actual end of the gadget is on the timeline. And then the next one on will be at the start. Do the same for that. So we want each of these columns to contain one trigger zone in the right order. Like that. I'll just stagger them for reasons. Like that. So right now the timeline playhead is over this one, so only this trigger zone is being powered, and only that trigger zone can detect anything. So nothing's happening if I put the tag in that zone, apart from this one, because that one is actually powered by the timeline. So we're going to use that to say only power this trigger zone. Once that has detected the tag, move on to the next one, and the next trigger zone will detect stuff. So that means controlling this playhead. So we want to say go to there when this has done its stuff. So we've got this value slider. If we hold a wire, while we're holding a wire, then this playhead input appears. We can just link it like that. And now we can send through a percentage to the playhead, and it will go to that percentage through the timeline. So that's 70%, for example. So I'll use a calculator so we can see smaller increments. If we plug that in there, if we set that to 0, then this one is being powered. If we set it to 0.25, then that one's off and that one's on, because it's just to the right of the playhead, and that's how it works. But we don't want to kind of set this value different specifically every time. We just want 100% to be chopped up into 4 pieces. And we can use a counter to do that. If we wire counter progress into a value slider, you can see it sends a percentage. So if we put that to 100, then if we set this to 50, then it will be 50% of the way through 100. So it will send out a 50%. So if this was on 4, then when it's on 0, it's sending 0, 1, it's sending a quarter, and this is rounding down, and then half, and then 3/4, and then full. And that's exactly what we want to use to control here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be right at the end. And because we made sure that isn't hanging off the end, then it's not being powered while the playhead is right at the end. So what do we want to happen when that trigger zone detects the car? We want to increase this so that it goes one along, and now it's waiting only for that trigger zone. So if we wire detected into increase count, then if we play time, we can move it around into there, and when we get into there, then it's moved it on to the next trigger zone, and now none of these trigger zones work apart from that one over there. So then we do the same for each of them. So now we play time and move this over into the first one, and now none of these work. And then second one, and now none of these work. And then third one, and now these don't work. And then the only one that works is to actually go over the line. So you could reverse all the way around the track and then go over the line and counter lap, but that would be more time than actually just playing the game properly. So that's the idea. You have to go around these checkpoints in the right order to score a lap. So what happens when it gets to the end? Well, we want to reset the counter entirely and add to another counter, which will be our lap counter. If we add another counter, give it a big number. So when this gets to the end, when this gets to 4, then the full signal will come out as well. So we'll just use that to add to our lap, and we'll use that to reset. We'll just name this so we remember which is which. Yeah, it's meant to be encounter full. So as we pass through the checkpoints, it goes on through the checkpoints. When you go through the last one and you've done the rest in the correct order, then it adds one to the laps and resets so the next checkpoint works. So that works fine. Now this doesn't do anything if you go back. Like if you go back and forth, it doesn't like subtract a lap when you go that way and add a lap when you go that way. For that we can use a different method. I'd like to thank Keldbjones, Mobius DT, RevPlayer and all of my other supporters for making this tutorial possible. Check out TAPgiles.com to find out how you can support me in helping Dreams creators. Thanks for your consideration, and I'll see you in the next one.